Hey everybody. I am just recording a session with a student on this video. So instead of me doing a regular tutorial video type format, this is just a bird's eye view from our camera of us starting on a swipe painting. So these were probably, I would say they were probably 11 by 14 inch canvases. We both put down just different colors in a line horizontally. You can squiggle it a little bit. You can do a zigzag. You can actually go vertically as well. Your goal is to your goal is to get the paint to just basically cover the surface, and you're going to leave a few inches of space at the top of your canvas to fill in with your swipe color. And all of my paints are mixed 1-to-1 with Floetrol. And depending on the brand of the paint, most of them are Deco Art, which does not require adding water, but if they're from tube paints, which some of them are tube paints, then I do add water, and then the water is always the variable. The recipe for me is always the same. It's 1-to-1 paint to Floetrol. The water is the part that I add a little bit or more of, depending on the thickness of the brand of the paint. And I had kind of directed her, how to give herself some space at the top, and she had a little too much of a gap at the top, so I had asked her to fill in a little bit more space up there. I'm swiping with white, which does not have silicone in it. She is swiping with purple, which does have silicone in it, because all of the colors have silicone in it. So I want you to see that you actually can do a swipe with silicone in all of your paints if you need to. You don't have to leave the silicone out of the swiping color, but it worked well this time with her having silicone in it. I don't add a ton of silicone, or sometimes the paints may even have OGX, but I only put a drop of OGX into a cup of paint. And I always try to reiterate that it takes just a drop in a cup of color to give you wonderful cells. These are paints that I've had for several days. They're actually quite thick. So I wasn't sure exactly how well they would do with selling up because they were thicker. But you can kind of see right away with hers, the cells just popped out immediately. And so again, like I said, you can swipe with a color that has silicone in it. Some people say they have silicone in their paint and don't get any cells, and I'm not sure how that happens because if you when I use silicone, I use a drop of silicone per ounce of paint mixture. So say if you have 8 ounces of paint mixture in your cup of a certain color, I add 8 drops of silicone. I only stir it just a little bit. Now the colors in my paint bottles, the squeeze bottles that we use, those are shaken, and they're shaken often. And that is why you get the smaller cells, because they are shaken, and so the essence of stirring frequently. So even with stirring, you should get cells with silicone. And on the OGX, like I said, it takes 1 drop for a whole cup of paint, not per ounce of paint like I do with the silicone, so just keep that in mind. And she wanted to do some flowers at the top of the swiped area. And so we were trying to do it a little bit like one of my other swipes I had done that looked a little bit more abstract and looked more like a prickly kind of flower. And so we're both experimenting, and I wasn't feeling my flower at all. It just did not look anything like I wanted it to look, and she was kind of working on hers and getting a little frustrated. So you'll see here in a minute that we just end up swiping off the corners of both of them and putting the white and the purple paint back down, and then we do with the puddle pours where you blow into the puddle. So that's what you'll see here coming up. So with the puddle pours, I will do kind of a gradation of colors, but all in a puddle, and get progressively smaller with each puddle. And when you blow, it's a gentle blow, and you kind of blow upwards from the bottom of your puddle, as if you were blowing up like up to the top, like a petal shape. And then you go out from the center bottom out to the sides for your petals that would go out on either side. You can kind of play around with the shape. You can go and blow back down to the bottom of the flower as well. There's all kinds of possibilities. So here you see where I've scraped off some of the top of the color. I don't go down too hard because it'll take it down, to your colors underneath and make a mess. So you're just kind of scraping that very top surface off, and then we'll reapply the purple and the white there in those corners to start fresh with our flowers over them again. And I just use my fingers to pat it. So we're just discussing, if we like the flowers, and she wasn't certain about hers, which I thought hers were really pretty. Hers, she blew hers a little differently than I did, more kind of like in points at the tips. She continued the blow out of the whole puddle, whereas I kind of kept mine contained in the round shapes at the top. But there's different ways you can do it, and there's no right way to do it. You just do it the way that it is pleasing to your eye and makes you feel good about what you're doing. The whole purpose of art is just to create, and to create from a place of joy. It does not have to be perfect. It's just a matter of you just creating your skill level and you being content with your outcome. And one of the most healing properties of painting is just releasing and the freedom of it. And it's just very relaxing and therapeutic. And I'm always a big proponent of healing power of arts, whether it's painting, music, dance, poetry, reading, whatever it may be. It has a healing effect on you emotionally, physically, spiritually, that kind of thing. So now we're going to do a very thin line of greens down the canvas as if they were stems, because she also wanted to, get the swiping technique down pat, between swiping the whole canvas with the paper towel to swiping with a credit card or a palette knife or, whatever tools that we might use. So this was a lesson about swiping and flowers. And with these squeeze bottles, they have a smaller spout than the dollar store bottles do. And so you have more control. And it's just a matter of learning how much pressure to use because it actually takes very little pressure to get paint to come out of the bottle. And you can always add more, but you can't, if you put too much down, it's hard to take it back off. So that's why I love these bottles that have the smaller spouts. And they are in the Amazon link below my video. They're, I think, about $15 or $16 now. The price has gone up just a bit, but it's for 8 bottles, and so they roughly end up being about $2 a piece, but they are well worth it because the plastic is firmer, the screw-on lids do not leak. Well, the whole screw-on part of the bottle at the top with the spout does not leak. It's a very tight seal, and then it has a screw-on lid that makes it even more airtight. And these bottles with the paint in them will keep for an indefinite period of time with the silicone and paint and everything in it. And I continually add paint that's left over in my cups. If I have yellow in my cup left over, then I add it to the yellow squeeze bottle when I'm done. So I'm constantly adding paint to the mixture. So this mixture is just a combination of months of paint combined. And I'm showing her, I'm trying very carefully. We spend a lot of time on this as people have a tendency to get very heavy-handed when they are swiping, especially putting colors on top of colors. And the key to a good swipe without going down to the canvas surface or muddying up your colors is to just gently touch your palette knife or your credit card or whatever you're swiping with, your tool, is to just lay it softly on the surface of the paint, and you're only gliding the colors that you've just put down. Say if you're just putting the colors for a green leaf, the green, the dark green, the medium green, the lime green, the yellow. You're only wanting to bring your palette knife across those colors. You're not wanting to press down into the other colors below. Like on her painting, she doesn't want, I don't want her to push down into the purple. I want her to glide across the surface of the purple. And for me, I'm gliding across the surface of my white that's been swiped over, the pinks and everything else. So there's a very fine line about putting the right pressure on your tools when you swipe to get your colors to stay true to what you've put down. It is very effective if you do it correctly. And all that is just taking practice and getting, lots of practice in on the right amount of pressure. So what we just did is we're lining up the dark green, the medium green, the lime green, and the yellow in order. And then I'm swiping from the dark green out to make my leaf color. And so that dark green will go over the other shades of green and yellow, and that will create the cells. And you see the contrast between the colors. And also, when I want it to go to a point, whether it's with my palette knife or a store card or whatever, is you start to lightly twist your palette knife and you pull up away from the surface, and that will give you that pointed leaf effect. And that is another thing that's kind of tricky for people, is just to learn when to start twisting your palette knife and to pull away as you kind of twist your palette knife. And then the final thing we're doing with the leaves is I take some of the color from the darkest part of the leaf and I use my palette knife kind of sideways and use it like a pencil to almost draw with it and draw those lines from the leaf back to the stem to make them feel connected. And she ended up adding a little bit of black into her leaves as well to swipe with. So I'm explaining to her black, dark green, medium green, lime green, and then she was using gold instead of yellow because she had metallic gold in her colors in the swipe. So there's two ways to pour or swipe the leaves. You can line the colors up like I'm showing her how to do. Excuse me. And you can also pour into puddles. So you can do dark green and then medium green and lime green and then the yellow on top and do it that way as well. And you get more of a rounded shape at the bottom of your leaf when you fan out the palette knife and take it to a point. And I was just pointing out to her, make your leaf go up instead of down or whatever. Leaves don't always go in the same direction every time. You don't want to be repetitive. You want it more random, so just a matter of just switching out. And here is the final picture. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give us a thumbs up. I think she did a beautiful job. Thanks again. Have a great day.